I just filmed this whole video, literally like so much information, and I realized that I forgot my microphone. So I'm doing it again. So let's start over. Oh, by the way, I did cut my hair. If you guys follow me on Snapchat, you already know that this has been a thing. But like one day I just was looking in the mirror and I was like, my hair's way too long, I need to cut it now. And so I just cut it. I mean, I didn't physically cut it. I went somewhere and got it cut. I would not cut my own hair. I did not trust myself cutting my own hair. I would ruin it. What's up guys, it's Kelly and today I am doing a nail polish 101 video for you. So the subject of this video is gradients, and I have done a gradient video. I feel like it was either last year or the year before. I honestly don't remember. I gave information on how to do a gradient, but I feel like I just did not give enough information because I didn't answer any of the questions that you guys always ask me. So I thought I would do like a really comprehensive, like all out guide to all of your stamping needs. Yes, I'm holding a sponge in my hand because I don't know, I just keep on squeezing it and it's fun. So I just wanted to do like an all-out ultimate guide to gradient nail art. It's my favorite type of nail art, and there are so many little like nuances that can make your gradient go from like average to awesome. That is what I want to show you guys today. So first I'm going to go over just the absolute basics of stamping. If you have stamping, I'm not stamping, I'm doing gradients. For anybody who has absolutely never done a gradient before, it is the easiest nail art one could possibly do, believe me. Everybody I know who has gotten into nail art, it has been, they started doing gradients, they loved them so much, and then they just started getting into other stuff. They're probably like the #1 nail art that I do personally, just because I love the way they look. You can literally use any colors, any color scheme, and you can just come up with awesome nail art. So we're gonna go over just the absolute basics for those of you who have never done it before, or for those of you who have tried it and you failed at it, or you couldn't seem to get it right. That's what we're gonna go over, the basics, and then after that I'm gonna go into like the more intermediate stuff, which is just how to make your gradients be like go from average to like really good. So let's talk about basics first. So gradient nail art is when your nail fades from one color to another color, or from one color to multiple other colors. You can technically do a gradient where your polish goes from color to glitter. I am not gonna go over that in this video just because I wouldn't even count it in the same realm. It's significantly easier than doing a regular gradient, and I have done a ton of videos on glitter gradients before. I will put my most recent one up in the cards right here. You just sponge on some glitter to the tips of your nails. That's how you do it. Spoiler alert. But you guys can still watch the video if you want to see. This video is mostly going to be about fading your polish from one color to another color or to multiple other colors. I'm going to use this sponge to death off my sweat. It's like 95 degrees out right now, and I don't have the air conditioning on because I don't want the microphone to pick up the air conditioning on, and I've just got these like huge lights on my face, and it's just, I'm sweating, so I'm just gonna blot it out. In order to do a gradient on your nails, the #1 thing you're going to need is a sponge. So there are actually other ways to do a gradient without using a sponge. The sponge is the #1 easiest way. If you guys want, I can do a video on different ways to do gradients without using a sponge, but this is the easiest and cheapest way. I buy these little face sponges. They're just like these little cosmetic wedges. Doesn't matter what color they are, as long as they're not super porous. You don't want a kitchen sponge because that has too many holes in it. You want to get like a one that has really, really fine, teeny tiny holes. These are the ones that I buy. I get them at Walmart, but you can literally buy face sponges anywhere. These ones have vitamin E in it. It doesn't matter if it has vitamin E or if it doesn't have vitamin E. It is all literally the same, and they just come in these like, I don't know if you guys need all this information, but I figure if I'm just gonna be going all out. So they're all like attached, and you just rip them off. Hard to rip right now for some reason. This sponge is coming in handy for my sweat. So one of the questions that you guys ask me so frequently is how do you get the polish off of your sponge? Because basically what you have to do is you have to paint your nail polish onto the sponge and then sponge it onto your nail. And a lot of you guys want to reuse the sponge, so you ask me how to do that. Unfortunately, once the polish dries on the sponge, there's nothing you can do. What I like to do is I get 4 uses out of each sponge, and when I say uses, 1 use equals 10 nails. So you can do a full manicure with 1 use of a sponge. So I always do 1 use with the top part of the sponge, 1 use with the bottom part of the sponge, and then I flip it over and I get 2 uses out of the back side as well. Once the polish dries on the sponge, it's done, but then you can just flip it over, use the other side, use the bottom, use the top, whatever. Some people like to use this like blunt edge of the sponge. I personally don't like to. People say that it's easier to do this because you can just cut it off and keep reusing it, but I feel like it just gets flimsy when you cut off this back piece, so I'm not really a huge fan. That's just personal preference. If you guys prefer to use that side, you go right ahead and do that. I'm just gonna keep fun using these sides. So it doesn't make the manicure any better or worse to use a different side. It's just honestly personal preference. Although I will say, I feel like whenever I have used this side, I feel like it's more porous. Like I feel like the holes are more visible on my nails. You know what I mean? I don't know. So the next thing you will need in sponging is something to protect the skin around your nails. So I personally like to use liquid latex. Obviously, if you have a latex allergy, please don't use that. I do have a video about alternatives to liquid latex, but you can just use tape. So what I use it for is I put it around the skin around my nails and on my cuticles to protect that, because when you sponge on the polish, it's gonna get all over, and your options are to either clean it up with nail polish remover and like a little Q-tip, or you can just apply liquid latex, let it dry, do your sponging, and then peel it off when you're done. That's just what I prefer to do. The liquid latex that I use is not actually marketed for nail art, which means it's significantly cheaper. A lot of people prefer to buy brands that they like know the name of, and it's like a nail art brand or whatever. I just buy mine in this big jar, and it's like $7 to get a huge tub of it. It's like literally 100 times cheaper. I actually did a video where I like compared all the prices, and it's literally 100 times cheaper. So that's just my preference because I like to save money. You guys can use whatever brand you want. So let's talk about the absolute basic. So the number one most basic way to do a gradient is to pick two colors that are similar to each other. Use the lighter color as your base coat, then take your sponge, overlap the two colors over them, and then sponge that onto your nail. Let's break that down a little bit more and make it easier for you. I'm going to use pink as an example. So let's say you have a light pink and you want to go into like a hot pink. First, you want to paint on your base color. So if you just sponge on the colors without using a base color, the sponged pieces aren't very opaque and they're not going to have anything to cling on to. You really need to have a base color there to help those sponged on parts show up. I don't think parts or bits is the right word because I don't want it to sound like there are pieces of sponge, but when you paint your polish onto the sponge, you're taking out a lot of its opacity. No matter how opaque the polish is, it's not going to be fully opaque when you sponge it onto your nails because you're not using a full coat of it. So that's why you need to have a base color. So the easiest way to do it, like I said, is let's take this pink example again. So you paint on your pink nail polish. The next step is to let it dry completely. That's another thing that you guys ask me a lot about. How quickly do you apply your colors after you use your base color? You want to wait until that color is completely dry. If it is not completely dry, using the sponge is just going to pull that color right up. So you don't want to do that. Once you do that, you can go ahead and apply whatever it is that you're going to use to protect your skin, whether it be tape, whether it be liquid latex, whether it be any other cool tool that you have to do that with. Then you're going to let that dry if it needs to dry. Obviously, tape doesn't have to dry. And then you're going to take your sponge and you're going to draw two thick stripes of color onto your sponge. One with the color that you painted your nails with, that base color, and then you're going to slightly overlap it with that darker color. And you want to have like a nice area where that color overlaps on the sponge. And then you also want to make sure that the sponge is super saturated. So when you squeeze the sponge, you want to see polish oozing out. Don't worry, you're not wasting the polish. The way that it works out is you'll end up using the same amount as if you were just painting all 10 of your nails, so you don't have to worry about that. Once that polish is totally saturated in the sponge, then you want to line it up with your nail and you want to start dabbing it on. You can move around slightly up and down or side to side. That helps your blending process. You just want to make sure that the lines blend together smoothly. I usually go up and down a little bit, but it's such a small movement that you can't really tell. Once you pull your sponge away, you're going to notice that that color is likely not fully opaque on your nails. That is because, like I said, once you paint that color onto the sponge, it's not going to be fully opaque anymore because you're not applying a full coat onto your nail. You can go ahead and apply that first layer, which you could probably hardly see, on all of your nails, and then let that dry. Usually, because the sponging on is not a very thick layer of polish at all, by the time I'm done with my 10th nail, my first nail is already dry, so I don't really worry about it. I just go right back to that first nail again, and I start to apply my second coat. So usually after 3 to 5 nails, I'll have to reapply the colors onto the sponge. So it's literally easy. All you do is just take the colors again and draw those same stripes over the last stripes and just sponge it on again. As soon as you start to feel the sponge not being saturated anymore, that's when you want to redo it. So sometimes if I do a lot of sponging, I need to change it after like every second nail. So that doesn't mean you have to start over or use a new sponge. It just means painting over the same colors in the same exact spot over again and then continuing to sponge. So when the sponge is super saturated and you're applying it to your nail, the way that you can tell if you need to refill that color on the sponge is if it starts to feel sticky. So if you start to apply it onto your nail and it's like starting to feel like it's getting stuck on your nail, that's when you have to stop, that's when you have to reapply. You want it to always feel slippery. Like you always want it to feel like the sponge is slipping off of your nail. That's how saturated you want it to be. So if you do not do that and let it fully saturate, then little bits of the sponge are gonna come off and they're gonna get stuck on your nail, or what's gonna happen is the sponge is gonna start to try to soak up the nail polish that already exists on your nail, and it's gonna pull off some of that color and ruin your manicure. So once you are satisfied with however many coats you need, for me it is taken anywhere from 1 coat if it's like a metallic polish and it's really, really opaque, to 4 or 5 coats if it's like a really light color and it's hardly showing up. All right, I'm gonna insert a quick voiceover here just because I totally forgot to say this when I was filming, but once you are satisfied with how your gradient looks, then you can go ahead and peel off your liquid latex. It doesn't matter if your gradient is dry or not dry, as long as you just peel that off and not touch your nail, you're totally good. So you can just peel it off with your finger, or you can be fancy and peel it off with some tweezers, and then you're left with hopefully minimal mess. What I like to do is take a little brush and some pure acetone, and I just go around my nail and I clean up anything that's still on my cuticles. I do have a video on this in my Nail Polish 101 series. I will put that up in the cards so you guys can watch it. Once you're done with that, you let those gradients dry onto your nails, and then you apply your top coat. So top coat is really cool in this situation because it actually helps to blend out your sponging a little bit more. When you first sponge on, you're gonna see it doesn't really look great. It kind of looks a little bit like a tennis ball just because it's not smooth onto your nail, but once you apply that top coat, it's gonna smooth everything out. It's gonna create that really nice design, and it's gonna help that fade a lot. All right, so now that you guys know the absolute basics of sponging on your manicure and doing a cool gradient, let's talk about the little details. So when you are doing a monochrome nail art look, it's okay to use your lightest color as a base coat. But when you are doing colors that fade into each other that are different colors on the color scale, then you do not want to have a base color other than white, because the base color is going to influence the colors above it. So let me give you guys an example. If I were to paint pink to purple to blue and I start to sponge that over pink, that blue is gonna look purple because blue over pink is not a true blue. It looks purplish because the colors start to mix together. If I do that over white, then all of the colors are gonna show up really bright. Another thing that white base coat does is it helps your colors really pop out. But if you want to do something like light purple to dark purple or light pink to dark pink, you can use that lighter color as your base color, because putting a darker purple over a lighter purple isn't going to change the color of that dark purple. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. That brings me to another point. So if you want to do a pink to blue gradient, it's going to be a lot easier to have a transition color in there to help keep that gradient looking really smooth. You don't ever want there to be like a really blunt part of your nail where it's like, okay, the pink ends and then the blue begins. You want it to be like a nice fade in the middle. So it's really tricky at first when you start picking out colors, because you probably want to experiment with just a lot of different fun colors, and a lot of colors don't really blend together nicely. So if you look at a color wheel and you see that the colors that you like are on the opposite end of the color wheel, it's going to be a little bit harder to blend them together. Like for example, if you want to blend red to green for Christmas, right? When you start to blend that red and green, the color in the middle is gonna be like a really murky brown color, and it's not gonna be that nice. So you might not want to do that. But I would recommend just trying to keep colors that are like within the same portion of the color wheel. Let's talk about those transition colors in the middle. So let's say you have a manicure and you want to go from white to dark purple. So when you sponge that onto your nail, if you're just using white and dark purple, you're going to have a little bit of a harder time blending that out and making it look seamless, just because there's nothing to help those two colors blend together besides that one overlap that you did. So one thing that I love to do is I love to have middle colors that help the polish blend from one color to another, and that's what helps me keep my gradients looking really smooth. One of my more popular manicure videos is my red to black gradient. So for that, I didn't just do red and black polish. I did red and then I did a darker red and then I did a black, and that darker red in the middle really helped that manicure become like super, super seamless and look really nice. So I'll I'll link that up there as well so you guys can see it. One other thing I want to talk about is metallic nail polish, holographic nail polish, anything that's super, super opaque, any kind of stamping nail polish. If you apply those with a sponge, man, they're gonna look so cool. I love doing metallic gradients just because you can literally sponge them on once and there's your gradient, you're done. You don't even have to like do anything else. The only annoying thing is if you aren't completely covering the skin around your nail, you're gonna get like those little glittery bits all over and it's such a pain to clean up. So I try not to do them too often. Can always do a cream to a shimmer, but it's gonna be a little bit more of that blunt difference just because there's not gonna be a point where the cream and the shimmer fully blend in with each other. There's always gonna be a point where that cream ends and that shimmer begins. So I like to stick to the same finishes when I am doing a gradient. So again, it's the same as like staying within the same color scheme. You definitely want to stick to the same type of polish if possible. And I don't mean to say brand, you can use whatever brand. You can blend them in as much as you want, that's totally fine. I like to do like cream to cream or glitter to glitter or metallic to metallic just because I think that those blend a lot easier. So the absolute hardest gradient that I have ever tried has been white to black. Man, that is not easy. I'm gonna try it again though, I feel like, because this is, oops. Where did my sponge go? It is. I'm having so much fun with the sponge. So I think that is it for this video. Hopefully you guys found it helpful. Definitely leave me comments below if you have any questions and I'm happy to answer them there. So if you guys want to see my other nail polish 101 videos, I will put the playlist right here. I've got a bunch of different videos and it's just literally all the basics of nail polish and nail art. Anything that you could possibly want to know is either there or it's being filmed. So if you guys have any requests, also leave them in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up if you're enjoying the Nail Polish 101 series so far. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, definitely subscribe because I give you guys helpful tips and sometimes I'm funny. I do answer all of my comments, so if you just want to say hey, then I'll be like, hey. That is it, so I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Bye. So if you're new to my channel, then you might not know that at the end of every video with my face in it, I do a little fun fact. So today's fun fact, I don't think I've said this before, but it feels like I talk about it a lot, so forgive me if I have said this before, but I love clouds. Like, I don't know if the clouds are different in New Jersey than they are in Georgia. I live in Georgia now, and I'm just like, I have an album of clouds on my phone, and I have like over 200 pictures of clouds. So if you guys ever want to send me cloud pictures, like on Twitter, I'm all for it. I love the cloud pictures. I love seeing other people's cloud pictures. Oh, I love clouds. They're so pretty. I wish I could swim in them, you know? This is a dumb fun fact. We're just gonna go with it. All right, bye guys. Talk about clouds. Guys, look at this. What is this? What are these clouds doing? Why are they so beautiful? Stop it. Look at these clouds. Look at these. Look at these. What is this? What is this? What's going on here? Oh, that's nice.